Hi friends, I'm just kind of laughing because this is my new normal, sitting in my bathroom on the toilet, looking at my phone and talking to you about the Bible. But times are strange. And I want to talk to you about that idea of normal because it's a phrase that we're hearing all the time on the news and our social media feeds, probably from our children. When is life going to get back to normal? How long until life gets back to normal? I just want to go back to normal school. I just want to buy normal groceries. I just want to use normal toilet paper and not this gargantuan mammoth. This, by the way, is like 2 or 3 weeks of use. We bought mega toilet paper. Perhaps I should put the link below. Anyway, so we have this desire to go back to normal. But in me, there's this thing that pushes against that phrase every time I hear it. This kind of yelling out, no, you don't want to go back. You don't want to go back to normal. And it surprised me how strong my reaction was to that phrase until I remembered Lazarus. And today we're going to spend some time in John 11 reading what might be a familiar story for you. But I think it gives us insight into Jesus' opinion of what it means to get back to normal. I'm going to share with you seven things from this passage that have helped me to understand this unrest in me, but also have given me lots of hope in navigating our current normal. So the first thing is, we, like the people in this story, want things to go back to normal. The story starts with Lazarus, who is sick, and his sisters Mary and Martha call for Jesus. In verse 3 it says, the sisters sent to him saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. Now this was not a news flash, this was a plea for help. A perfectly right thing for the sisters to do. Something is broken, somebody is sick, something is wrong, you call for help. Because they wanted Lazarus to get back to normal. Perfectly right reaction for them. But what happens next isn't exactly what they were expecting. When Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. We're going to get back to that word glory in just a minute, because I want to continue what he said, what happens next. Now, in verse 5, it says, Jesus loved Mary and her sister and Lazarus. And the love word that is used there is the Greek word agape, which means he unconditionally loved them. He loved them perfectly. And I love, maybe not agape love, but I really dig the next word in the passage. So Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed away for 2 more days. So, and I even looked that up in the Greek too, because I thought surely they got that one wrong. But it means the same thing, that it means that the clause before that word so determines the action after. It's a cause and effect. So because Jesus perfectly loved Mary and Martha and Lazarus, he stayed away, even though Lazarus was really sick. And the disciples were really confused about this. They thought maybe that Lazarus was asleep and Jesus said he was going to go wake him. And then Jesus is like, no, you dummies. But he didn't really use that word. He said, Lazarus is dead. He knew exactly what he was doing. But for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't there, so that you may believe. Let us go to him. And so here's what I notice in that section, that sometimes we don't understand why normal has to pass away. Like, we don't understand, why did this have to happen? what I'm about to say applies to this story, and there may be truth in it in our current situation, but I'm not saying that I know the mind of God. What I do want to point out is how Jesus explains part of his why he allowed Lazarus to die. First of all, in verse 4, he said it's for the glory of God so that the Son of God may be glorified. And what that means is he let normal pass away. He let Lazarus die so he could show up and show the world that he was God. That's what glorify means, where God is shown to be fully God. So sometimes normal passes away so that God can show up. Sometimes normal passes away so that God can fully love. And that seems strange to us until we think about what it really means to love. To love somebody is to do what is best for them, not to do what makes them feel best. And so Jesus knew that what he was about to do was best for Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And the last thing he said is that he said to his disciples, I'm glad I wasn't there so that you will believe. And sometimes normal has to pass away so that our faith can thrive. And now I'm not saying that Jesus just let Lazarus die to teach everybody a lesson. Not at all. And we'll certainly see that later in the passage. But I am saying that Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. And that when he let Mary and Martha's normal pass away, he had other things in mind. But here's the fact. Just like Mary and Martha, we don't like it when normal goes away. We don't like it when our norm, what we're comfortable with, what we love, what we know, what we have, when that goes away, we don't like it. In fact, Martha says to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, then my brother would not have died. She's mad. She's sad. She's angry. She's confused. She doesn't get why he didn't show up, why he didn't fix it, why he didn't heal. She knew he could. Why didn't he? We don't like it when our normal goes away. I think about Peter right before Jesus' crucifixion, when he's like, no, Lord, you can't die. And Jesus says, you don't get it. I have to. Jesus even says later to his disciples, it's better for me to die so that I can send you the Holy Spirit. This goes way back, even in the Old Testament. We as a people don't like it when our normal is messed up, even if our normal is messed up. Like the Israelites, when they had been freed from captivity in Egypt and they're about to enter the promised land, they get freaked out by the people in Jericho. And so they say, no, never mind. We don't want to go to the promised land. It looks too scary. And so they turn around and say, can we just get another leader and go back to Egypt? Sometimes we want to go back to our normal, even if it's not good for us, even if it's a place of captivity, or even if it's just a place of normal. But here's the thing. I don't think that Jesus wants normal for us. Instead of normal, I think Jesus offers new. And he does that in this story. He says to Martha, your brother will rise again. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, shall yet live. Do you believe this? And she says, yes, I believe this. I believe that in the end, that he'll come back to life with everybody else. And Jesus is like, no. I'm not talking pie in the sky, far off. Everything is going to be okay in the end. I'm saying right now, see, I'm going to do something new right now in your midst. Because Jesus knew that resurrection is better than return. And new life is better than normal. But he also knew this, that the promise of new life does not negate the grief associated with the necessary death. Look what happens next in the passage. So Mary comes out onto the scene and she says the same things that Martha did. Like, why weren't you here? If you had been here, then my brother wouldn't have died. And Jesus could have said, hang on, I'm going to show you something awesome. You'll be okay. Everything is going to be all right. I'm here to be the fixer. But instead, this is what happens. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews also who came to weep with her, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, where have you laid him? And they said, Lord, come and see. And then that famous 2-word Bible verse, Jesus wept. He fully knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the grave. He fully knew that there was hope of resurrection. He fully knew that he was God and had the power to restore and bring new life and provide something way better than their old normal. But he also knew that death was sad. And I don't know what deaths you're experiencing right now. It could be death of hope or expectations or your bank account or your patience or your vacation plans. I don't know what you've lost, but I know we've all lost something. And so as I talk about the hope of resurrection, the hope of new life, know that it doesn't mean that the death and what you've lost aren't sad. And I love what the people around Jesus noticed when he cried over Lazarus' death. The Jews said, oh, see how he loved him. That Jesus weeps because death is sad. He weeps for Mary and Martha. He weeps for Lazarus because he loved them. That love is acknowledging the sadness even in the midst of hope. So know that whatever you've lost, it's okay to be sad. But it's not the end. Even in our sadness, it may seem like newness is illogical, improbable, maybe even impossible. And that's how Mary and Martha felt at this time. So Jesus was deeply moved and he's at the tomb and they have the stone rolled away. And Martha, she's like, hang on, Jesus. Have you thought this through? Because I just don't think you can do this. Martha says, Lord, by this time, there will be an odor. He's been dead for 4 days. She's basically saying, this isn't any like regular CPR job. Like, I know you can raise a girl who just died, or, I know you can heal stuff, but this is like really, truly dead. This is like stinky dead. I think this one is too big. I don't know what you've lost. Does it feel like stinky dead? Like too far gone? Nothing is too stinky or too far gone for Jesus. Because he says to her, didn't I tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? You'd see God be fully God in all of his power. And so they took away the stone. And when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And the man who had died, just in case you missed it, I love that part, like, by the way, this is the dead guy who's been dead for 4 days, like over and over and over again. John just reminds us, normal is gone. That thing we used to know, that guy we used to know, he's gone. He's dead. He comes out. His hands and feet are bound with linen strips and his face is wrapped with a cloth. But Jesus says to them, unbind him and let him go. If Jesus had restored Lazarus back to normal, he would have never known what it felt to experience new life. And here's the thing. I don't think we as followers of Jesus were made for normal. I think that stirring in us, that stirring that I feel, is because we were made for new life. We are Lazarus people. We are people who were meant to move towards resurrection. We were meant to move from Eden to the New Jerusalem. We were meant to move from seed to plant, from caterpillar to butterfly. We were made for new life. We were made to long for something bigger and better and more perfect and more right. We were made for resurrection. And so don't miss this time. I don't want to miss it. And I'm spending time in prayer asking the Lord for myself. Lord, what did I used to think was normal? Are there things that you think should die? Habits, patterns, idols, things in my former life. I say former life like it's so long ago, 6 weeks ago, but there's a dramatic change. Lord, what needs to die? Give me courage to let it go, but also give me faith to believe that you can give me something new. You can transform me. You can create in me a new heart. Anyone who is in Christ is a new creation. I want to know that. I want to experience that. And I want to believe that you have something good. And at the same time, I don't want to skip over the death part. I want to sit in it a little bit. I want to cry about the things that are sad and the things that I miss or the things that I regret. And I know that you cry with me. But ultimately, I don't want to go back to normal. I want to go back, not back, I want to go forward to new. I don't want to return. I want resurrection. And I think you might too.